So just a minute. So we can start.
Good afternoon, everybody. Over here, we have joined for a very important topic, forensics by the first principles. It's really hard for seeing so many people join during this period, and it shows such an important topic that we are discussing on. And we have an equally important speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Snehamoy Banerjee, giving us his views and sharing his experiences with us on this particular subject. Now, before we start the session, I would like to call upon our chapter president, Shuvendu Chandar, to give his president's address. Shuvendu, sir.
Thank you, Chirag. It is my great pleasure and honor to start this seminar. We have been having a large number of seminars, and fortunately for us, we have been getting very, very good speakers who have really done value addition to our knowledge. And today also, I'm sure that with Lieutenant Colonel Snehamoy Banerjee with us, we will definitely get lot of deep insight into the forensics by the first principle. And I have been told that he will be discussing a live case, a real life case, and it will be definitely very interesting for all of us. But just to mention a few things about the chapter activities, we have been having regular seminars and uh, workshops. We had physical seminar also, and we intend to have more physical seminars. But webinars have become such a in thing today. People want to utilize their time more, and also it gives the opportunity of inviting speakers from outside our city, people who are in the other part of the country or maybe situated somewhere else in the world. We can connect to them and have seminars. Uh, so we will try to, in the future, have both physical as well as webinars to facilitate all of you. And I'm sure that you will be getting a whole lot of value addition to being part of this Kolkata chapter. I, as president of the Kolkata chapter, thank all of you for remaining with our chapter and showing interest in all the activities that the chapter is going through. We will be launching our newsletters as we have been doing in the past. We are also about to start the course, that is the training sessions for the incumbent students who are going to appear for their CISA examination, and those are already being announced in the groups. So please follow them and try to enroll yourself well in advance so that you can be assured of a seat in the classes. Uh, with these few words, without wasting any further time, we would love to hear our speaker for today afternoon, Lieutenant Colonel Snehamoy Banerjee. And I am sure that Chirag would like to give a brief introduction of the speaker before he can start. Over to you, Chirag.
Thank you, sir. Forensics is a specialized field that involves the application of scientific and investigative techniques to gather and interpret the evidence in legal and criminal investigations. Forensic experts use their knowledge and skills to uncover facts, solve complex problems, and provide expert testimony in the court of law. Forensic disciplines span across various areas, including forensic science, accounting, forensic psychology, forensic medicine, digital forensics, and so on. Such investigations play a critical role in justice, civil litigation, regulatory compliance to help uncover truth and provide impartial evidence based findings in legal proceedings. And today we have one such expert amongst us. Lieutenant Colonel Snehamoy Banerjee, retired, is the director and founder of BinSec Technologies, and retired Indian Army officer specializing in information warfare and cyber warfare. Sir is an alumni of National Defense Academy and has completed his M.Tech in Information Systems from the prestigious IIT Kanpur and MDP from IIM Lucknow. He has over 3 decades of experience in IT and cybersecurity. Lieutenant Colonel Banerjee specializes in reverse engineering, malware analysis, malware crafting, anti-reverse engineering techniques, surgical penetration, crypt analysis, dissection of cyber attacks, and so on. He's also an expert in IoT and he's a great researcher as well. Presently, he is researching in the field of security hardening of IoT devices. He also specializes in analysis and solution formulation of uncommon problems. He has many certification, prominent among them being the CISM, CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker, IDA Pro, both basic and advanced in reverse engineering. Sir is also an expert in ISO 27001, 2003 lead auditor, Nexpose administration, and Metasploit administration. Lieutenant Colonel Banerjee is also a regular speaker in our previous sessions and a regular contributor to our newsletters as well. And I can go on and on, but it will not do justice. Let I would prefer him to speak for himself. So, sir, without wasting any further time, the floor is yours. If you could begin your session.
Thank you, Mr. Chirag, and thank you, Mr. Subhendu, for the generous introduction that has been given about me. I hope I'm audible to everyone. If some confirmation, if I get some yes.
Yes, sir,
Yes,
you're
yes,
audible.
you're audible.
Thank you so much. Well, in the course of the next 2 hours, I will try to do some justice to the topic which I have been assigned. And I'm truly thankful to uh, the Kolkata chapter for having given me this opportunity to present my knowledge and share it with others. It is a particular use case which I'll be sharing with everyone. I hope it sounds interesting, though today is uh, Eid and also um, we have Akshaya Tritiya and post-lunch sessions are slightly difficult, that too with a heavy technical subject of forensics. Nonetheless, just to make it interesting, we will entertain questions at any stage anyone wishes to ask a question. You're free to ask the questions, and I will try my best to answer them. Uh, First and foremost, I would like to assure everyone that this topic is not very technical. I have tried to make it as simple as possible because I myself am not, I don't belong to the field of forensics. I rather hate to do forensics. It is something like an autopsy you're doing. I basically used to be an offensive hacker, and it is with that perspective that one such very special case that came to me, and with very stringent conditions, and we did some work on it, which actually had the results were far too good. So I'll be sharing that with you all, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. Okay, now I'm very sure many of you must have had some experience in forensics, and that is why we all are assembled here today. And classically, we have been having forensics as that pertains to the court of law, where we are trying to find out evidence, build a story, and then present it. So, just one slide to bring out what digital forensics. It's a branch of forensic science. Mind you, it's of forensic science and not of IT or cybersecurity, and it is encompassing the recovery, investigation, examination, analysis of material found in digital device, often in relation to mobile device and computer crime. So what we try to do out here is there will be a mobile device or a laptop So the first stage involves recovering the full data with its integrity. No loss of data is allowed, and the disk from which we recover the data, nothing should be written back onto that. And after we make an image of that complete disk, then we slowly try to carry out our investigation. Now, in this investigation, we actually have some hypotheses that we try to prove to be true or wrong. And as part of the examination, we evaluate whatever evidences we have collected. And after due analysis of the complete thing, the material found on the digital device, then we come to some conclusions. Now, it is part of an investigation and it's not the investigation itself. What I mean by it is that if there is a particular case, let's take, for example, the um, ED raids that are being carried out, right? So those are the investigations. A part of that, suppose if a computer or a laptop is recovered, we try to extract evidence from that laptop or mobile device or whatever it is. So it is part of the investigation, but it is not the investigation itself. So that demarcates digital forensics from the complete forensic science. Now, what do we use it for? We use it for identifying direct evidence of a crime. If we can dig out something like some balance sheets, some payments, some document which we are looking at, digital forensics can be used to attribute evidence to specific suspects. Now, there is a suspect, we have something, some hypothesis in mind, so we can try to dig out the evidence and attribute it to it. Yes, this thought is correct or wrong. It can confirm alibis or statements. If a claim is made, if a statement is made, it can actually be corroborated with the help of digital forensics. Most important in any investigation is, like, okay, let me give a bit of background. If we are talking of crime, the first and foremost in a crime is the intent. The second part is the planning, that how you want the intent to materialize. And the third part is the execution itself. So once you are gathering evidences, you gather evidences primarily from these 3 points of view. Firstly, evidences that can determine the intent, evidences that determine the planning, and evidences that determine the act or the crime itself. Right? We identify sources, for example, in copyright case, or authenticated documents, whichever can give credible evidence. We try to dig out such documents. Now, there's a question which arises out here. Is digital forensics used only for collecting and presenting evidence in court of law? Is that the only use that we knew of? I mean, why I am asking these questions is, I mean, it's just to make it a bit interesting for all of us. If people have some paper or pen in their hand, and from your knowledge and experience, you would like to answer these questions, and subsequently, once we go into the next slide or the next part, you may like to corroborate, that whether how much correct or wrong you were in thinking about it. Okay, so is digital forensics used only for collecting and presenting evidence in court of law? Most of us have actually been exposed to only this aspect of digital forensics, but this is not entirely true. Though digital forensics is used in court of law, no doubts, but traditionally it is associated with criminal law, where evidence is collected to support or oppose a hypothesis before courts. So, like, if in support means that if you're trying to prosecute someone, it helps the prosecution in finding out evidences that supports the prosecution, or it will support the other side. that is trying to say that this person has not done the crime in either case. So it is traditionally used for this particular purpose. Now we are not just limited to this. There are other areas where we actually use digital forensics. uh, I don't know if you can place it on the private chart. Does anyone know of any specific cases where it is used in other areas other than criminal law? Yeah, anybody? See, in corporates, there are a lot of internal investigation. It can be relating to a loss of IPR, a misuse of a particular resource, or a small case of corruption, anything like that, or anybody trying to misuse a system. So these are the other areas where you actually don't intend to go and file a case in the court of law or file an FIR, and from that perspective we are looking into the generating of the evidences. But here you would like to find out evidences and see whether such an act has actually happened. It is for internal consumption. Okay, so even there you are actually using digital forensics. Some specific cases, the collected evidence is used as a form of intelligence gathering, used for other purposes than court proceedings. For example, to locate, identify, or halt other crimes. As a result of intelligence gathering is sometimes held to less strict forensic standard. Okay, what we mean by this is that in the case of criminal law, traditional use of digital forensics, you will have to ensure that your hard disk has not been tampered with, or the image that has been extracted out of the hard disk, you are using only you are using that image in the case of criminal law. But in other cases, like in the case of intelligence gathering or some other details, what you do is you are actually not making a mirror of the hard disk or anything like that. You get to work on the live system directly, because here you are not going to prove anything in the court of law. Here you want to find out what has gone in the background, what has happened. You want to build the story and maybe find out intelligence so that your operations can be launched in with the help of this intelligence. It is from that point of view that you carry out digital forensics. Okay, so these are the areas other than the traditional area, which we have, most of us have been by and large handling traditional areas. Now this is something that is different from the traditional area. Now today's case actually pertains to the specific case of intelligence gathering and how we used digital forensics to carry out intelligence gathering. Any questions, anybody? You can please shoot, no issues. Okay, now if we come to the stages or the process of digital forensic, this has to be kept in mind. It is with this thing in mind that you proceed with your work. First and foremost is identification of evidence. What it means? Okay, I have not got the evidence at this stage because I am just beginning to start the work. But before beginning to start the work, I must know what is the digital crime that has taken place. And with my knowledge and experience, I should be able to orient myself in identifying what are the possible evidences that I could be looking for in a case like this. And we make a point of all these evidences that we are trying to look at it. So you actually carry out a mental appreciation of the problem and try to look at possible directions of solution. Right? Now, once you actually get to work, you will be acting on these points, and that is how you will be trying to bring out the evidences. The next stage that we go is the collection of the evidence. Now, preserving the digital evidence identified in the first step so that they doesn't degrade or, or vanish with time. Now, this is very, very important. Why? Once you produce the evidences in court of law, it is susceptible to be challenged by the other side. And if you cannot prove that that whatever you are producing, the original thing has not been tampered with, it will not be taken into cognizance in the court. It will be dismissed. So, preserving is very, very important of the original case. And from that, whatever mirror image you make and whatever digital evidences you identify in the first step, you start collecting those evidences. Right? We'll just see what this process is. So here what you're doing is you're collecting tiny bits of activities from the mobile or the laptop or whatever it is. It can be even routers and things like that. So you actually begin to collect one by one small pieces of events or evidences from that. And after you have collected this evidences, the next stage that you go into is you carry out analysis. Now, analyzing the collected digital evidences of the committed computer crime in order to trace the criminal and possible path used to breach the system. Okay. So here there are several options available out here. Now, if it is a case of a crime that has been committed on using that particular device, it's a different thing. But if you are trying to do an intelligence gathering or say digital forensics for malware analysis, you want to know how a virus or Trojan has infected a computer. So how did that breach take place in the system? What vulnerability was used? Which files were infected? Which processes were responsible for this? Right? So you are actually now trying to collect, you're trying to analyze. Just to give a metaphor of it, is the collection of the evidences pertains to something like flowers, and analysis is actually building a garland out of these flowers. So your story building that happens is firstly you might like to carry out a time based correlation where you might like to pin down that at such and such date, such and such time, first this action took place, then this action took place, then this action took place, then the next action took place. So you are trying to build small collect these evidences and build a story. Now, often what happens is in this particular analysis that you are trying to do, it is not possible that in the first run itself you come out with 100% successful story building of the complete crime scene. Okay, so what you do is there will be a lot of gaps in the first iteration that you go through. Now you pick up these gaps and once again go back to the second stage of collection of evidences and now look with a finer lens to gather these specific gaps that is to be filled. You are looking for evidence that pertain to that. So to give a very simple example, what happens is suppose there is an event X that has taken place, and after that event Y you don't know what happens, but something Z has happened after that, right? So in that case, invariably what happens is you are trying to look at a process where X was the input and Z is the output, and what was that process Y. So you now try to do a fine grained digging into the system once again and try to collect evidence and fill up these gaps. So you might have in complex cases, the iterations could go up to 10, 20, 30 days, 30 iterations, and it could take number of days actually trying to dig out those evidences and carry out the analysis of it. So once you have gone through the complete chain and now when there are no more gaps in the analysis that you have carried out, the next stage that you go is into the documentation stage. Now in this documentation stage, what you do is you document the whole digital investigation, digital evidences, and you build the full story out here. In fact, in people who have digital forensics as their profession or their main work, they actually have very complex tools for each of these steps, and there are tools even in the documentation stage where you can use these and use animation. There are a lot of animations available. Using the animation, you can build the complete case. I mean, if you like to take your minds back, if some of you have seen these documentaries on Discovery Channel on air crash investigations and things like that. So there you will find that what they do is they carry out a lot of animation, that how the aircraft was taking off from the runway, and then once it got airborne, what all happened and things like that. So basically something similar you do in the case of digital forensics also. So you build the story out here, and since I told that, digital forensics generally form part of the overall investigation, and this is not the investigation and in its own self. So this can be merged with evidences from other sources, and you can have a bigger story building to take place. And after that story building, you can use the animation and all these things to present your case, and that is the final stage in the presentation stage. Now, presentation of all the digital evidences and documentation, we nicely put them together, build the complete story, and this story has to be foolproof and should not be susceptible to investigation by the or cross questioning by the other side, and dismissing it, right? So whatever we do, it has to be very watertight case in collecting and presenting the evidences. I hope this is clear to everyone at this stage. Now, if there are no questions out here, we will like to go to the
So there are some
next slide.
questions.
Yeah,
There are some questions. If you may allow, can I ask you one by one?
yeah, sure.
Okay. So I'll just go by them one by them. So,
Yeah.
what are the different methods of collecting digital evidence from various types of devices, such as computers, smartphones, and cloud storage?
Okay. See, in the very elementary type of things, what we do is uh, actually there are plethora of devices. Every company is now coming out with different devices, but primarily the type of target they have, we can classify them. Suppose if we are trying to read the storage, so there are separate storage. There are FTKs and other devices where you actually try to extract the data from the storage without writing data onto the storage. So the source from where you're reading is actually write protected, and from there you're reading the complete thing, and you're imaging it to one or more hard disk, right? So if you want to carry out parallel processes, that means multiple investigators looking into different aspects. So what you do is you copy the source into different disks, and now you give this disk to others for carrying out their investigation. Similarly, there are kits to read mobile devices based on the USB interface of the mobile that is there, and from that USB interface you are able to read the disk. So there are those type of disks. Then there are devices that reads the memory. You can if the hot memory is available, you can dump the memory onto external devices and carry out analysis of those. They are also there. In very specific type of examples, like let's say routers or switches, which works primarily on firmware. So what you are trying to do there is trying to clone the firmware onto an external storage, and after that, there is another part of the memory in those type of devices. We call them as RWM, that's read write memory. We try to extract the read write memory, because in read write memory, the dynamic content is dynamic data is actually stored. So we try to extract whatever is there in the rwm also into external devices. And there are then various types of uh, hardware and software, where what you can do is this external disk, you can attach it to the hardware platform, and then you can shoot the menu driven software, and then you can try those menu driven software there. You can use it step by step to find out evidences from it. So there are a host of them. I'm not an expert in this particular thing. As I told earlier that this is not my field, but I have definitely at some stage worked for a few days on these. And with time, more newer forms are coming out. Even there are very very specific templated systems like to analyze 4G systems if any hacks have taken place. Then there is different things for servers from where we can extract data. Now, the question about cloud is actually very, very debatable. One of the prime disadvantage of cloud, especially public-owned clouds, is you cannot carry out any forensic analysis, digital forensic analysis on these cloud-based infrastructure, right? So, as part of the agreement, they don't allow that. But if you are using your own private cloud, then the case reduces to a simple desktop or a server case, because that device is in your custody. You can access it, and you can extract data just like as you would do from a desktop or a server. It is not any very different special case, right? But in the case of cloud, especially public cloud, because they are geographically based, they are governed by the local laws of that particular state. And the companies will by and large not allow you to carry out forensics. If anything new is there, I am not very much aware of it. But as far as cloud, there are no specific special device that I had seen or worked on. Have I answered the question?
Yes, sir, thank you. There's a similar question on this line is how do you handle encrypted or password protected digital evidence during the collection process to ensure its integrity and security? I believe you had mentioned that when you had told about copying the source and dumping it. So I guess that is all handled unless you want to add something to it.
Yeah, let me tell you one thing. Uh, Especially with the ransomware and other things coming in, uh, full disk encryption is now it's being used by almost all operating systems and every users and corporates, right? And full disk encryption is not if full disk encryption has been made, copying from the source is not that simple. Even if there is something called as you generally work on raw mode, right? So in raw mode, what happens is, irrespective of the encryption or whatever it is, you try to copy the data bit by bit or byte by byte or megabyte by megabyte byte from the source disk onto the external source, right? You try to do that, but it's not very easy. I mean, just to take the case, one such live example is, if we all have heard, read, or seen of the Boston bombing case, and where an Apple device was used by the bomber, and it was almost impossible to extract data from that device. Even Apple refused to divulge the keys in that. Though that story goes that subsequently somebody found out that it was all zeros. We don't know for sure whether it was or not. But yes, encryption is definitely a challenge, and that cannot be overcome so easily. Um, if you are doing a law-based digital forensic analysis, you can at least maybe force the victim to divulge the full disk encryption keys or something like that. But if it is being done for intelligence gathering or any other thing, it is actually a bottleneck for progressing further. It becomes almost very, very difficult to do it. Any other questions? Or I hope I have been able to answer.
Yes, sir. Thank you. There's another follow-on question. How do you ensure the integrity and authenticity of digital evidence during the collection process to maintain its admissibility in court?
Can you repeat the question? How do you
Certainly.
maintain the?
How do you ensure the integrity and authenticity of digital evidence during the collection process to maintain its admissibility in court?
Okay, see, the thing is, first and foremost, like I mentioned, that the source disk cannot be tampered. It should not be tampered. It will be in read-only mode, because the prime reason for that is the reference. So the chain of custody that we maintain for these evidences, that is from one stage to another stage, there is a chain of custody that is maintained, wherein we ensure that nothing nothing is sort of the repudiation is there. That is that we should be able to reproduce this once again, and the integrity check is maintained at all stages, right? So it can be in the form of hashes or things like that. The integrity check is maintained, and the chain of custody is maintained at all stages for this particular reason. And if the other side, whoever wants to challenge your story or wants to do it, they are free to do it. And all that they have to do is prove you wrong. To prove you wrong, if they're working from the same source disk and they are working in the exactly the similar fashion, they will come out with the similar results. It will not be very, very different. But if some tampering at some place has taken place, then obviously the results will be different, and you will be proved wrong. The chain of custody is very, very important out here. Have I
Thank you,
answered
sir.
that question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. There's one more question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle anti-forensic techniques such as data hiding, steganography, or file wiping during the collection process to uncover hidden or deleted data?
Okay, let me tell you, none of these are anti-forensic techniques as on date. Uh, these used to be anti-forensic techniques quite some time back, but today data hiding in alternate streams of data, or if steganography or anything like that, uh, it can be easily detected, and there are so many open source tools as far as detection of steganography is concerned. And you see, steganography, the algorithm as such is very, very open source algorithm. So if we are having, okay, just I'll dwell 1 minute maybe deeper into the steganography part, because I have seen in any forum this question is a very common question. So in steganography, what you actually try to do is that, suppose there is an image file, or even it is possible to do even with video files also. So if there is an image file or a video file, now what happens is the least significant bit data that is present for each byte of the data, we call it as the LSB, least significant bit data. Now that data can be either 0 or a 1. So if you alter it, it doesn't greatly damage the image as such, right? Now whatever this manipulation that you are doing, the information of that is available in the image header. So if the header is read, from that we can find out that the steganography has been used or not used. So a raw image will have a different header, and a image with steganography will have a different header. I have even come across cases where a bit of intelligent steganography was done, in the sense that the sender and the recipient both belong to the same organization, are very well trained, and they used to restore the header information back to the normal raw image, and the other end, they have ways and means of receiving this information through alternate means, and then reinserting the header and trying to remove the information hidden in the image. But still it is not very, very difficult. So steganography is no more a challenge. Alternate data streams today are no more a challenge. These can be read out. Even named hidden pipes which are there for inter-process communications, they are also very easily read out. So uh, today the world is very very different with technology getting open. It's very clear on these things. Interestingly, if someone wants to go and have a deeper knowledge into this, I can give some pointers. There's a guy called Mark Rusunovich who is now hired by Microsoft and is working there. So Rusunovich was a guy who, I mean, he developed a package of tools. It's called as SysTools. So SysTools is almost a pet of every hacker or people working in digital forensics. If you can Google search SysTools, you will get to know about it. And these tools are so amazing. It reveals almost everything internal to the system, right? So that is what it is. I hope I have been able to answer this question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I believe that is the last of the questions that I had collected. Shall we move forward?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, now we'll come down to the this incident, right? Uh, this incident was somewhere around 10 years back. It took place in Kashmir, and a laptop was recovered from a slain terrorist during an encounter. So the laptop was an Intel Atom-based netbook. People who have seen it, this used to be a very small type of laptop with I think 13 inches or 10 inches display. I don't exactly remember. And it was having a Tata Indicom USB dongle for communication, right? The USB modems that used to be prevalent earlier. This netbook, which was there, it had suffered a bullet injury. But fortunately for us, the bullet injury was not so bad that the book could not be utilized. Right now, just you before you get into a work like this, you have to get understand the psychology and the environment in which such uses of these devices are made. They will be used in places that are not in the cities, in the hilly areas and on top of hills and things like that, where you actually don't have electricity. No air condition, no electricity or anything to serve this. So there was no charger with this. Now, what this guys they do is they cut open the AC circuit, and it primarily runs on the battery, and from there they take out two leads and give it to a 6 volt correction, a 20 volt battery system from which they used to run the laptop, right? Because they cannot charge the battery, and that battery is essential for running the laptop. So they used to charge the laptop with this small bit of modification that used to be present on it. And unfortunately, okay, that I'm covering later. Okay, now Windows XP was the operating system in it, of course pirated, and no credentials were known to us. Now, obviously, it is a treat, right? So such a notebook falling in the hands of security forces, it's not a very common thing to happen. It is I will say a rarest of the rare cases. Even in those days, mobiles used to be slightly available with the terrorists, but definitely notebooks and other things were not available. And so what happened was, every security agency operating in that area, they wanted to showcase their uh, best ability, and they put their best foot forward, claiming that, sir, please give us this laptop and we will mine tons of data out of it and present it to you all. So what happened is, it went from first agency to second to third. I don't know, God knows how many agencies it went through, and none of them actually could make any headway. But what happens if the psychology of a investigator is, if you are investigating using digital forensics, you need to have lots of patience. if you are the one who believes in a 2 minutes Maggi noodle situation type of solution, this is a very wrong profession for you. It is so frustrating that you might actually spend days and weeks and come out with nothing, or you might be chasing a ghost evidence that actually doesn't exist. You are running after it and nothing happens. So you need lots of patience, and if you're patient and if you can keep your cool, definitely you will come out with good results. This is something which I would like to share with everyone, that if this is one field, you have to be patient, right? So in the hacker world, we believe in consuming lots of beer and chicken, so that you're in good mood, you don't get frustrated very soon, and you do justice to your job. And once it was changing one hand to another, so if the investigators in that shortage of time could not do anything worthwhile, he tried to get reckless and access those features which he should not touch generally, if you are very serious about extracting information from this, right? So this two leads, charger leads that were outside, people even did not understand what those leads were. So they sort of at some place it got shorted and the battery was swollen and damaged, and with just 10% charge left, it was very very difficult for us. But fortunately for us, we had a similar laptop and we were smart enough to replace the battery with our one, and we started working on it. So this is the backdrop of the incident of how what has happened. Now, after having exchanged so many hands, finally, me and my team, we were in Delhi and we were having a very different nature of work to do. So somebody approached us, such and such thing has happened. Would you like to try your hand at it? So we refused at first, saying, that this is not our mandate and we don't do these jobs and we don't have the psychology for it. We are slightly reckless type of people, and it will not be right to entrust with this responsibility to us. So they said that we have met the wall, we are against the wall right now, and no solution exists. We have gone to various places, so why don't you just try? I said fine, we'd like to try. And the time given to us was just one night, from 8 p.m. in the night till 6 a.m. in the morning. We and around 6 to 8 of us in the team, we had to do it. So there was no question of any cloning of the disk or anything like that, because those who have done cloning understand the time taken in cloning disk. Even if it's just 500 GB of data, the amount of time it takes to actually clone is enormous, right? So no scope of that for us. Secondly, this cloning was of no use because we were not having any such devices to use the clone. So rather we would prefer to work live on the system, right? So this is what it was like. And before we go into the next part, I would like everyone to just exercise their mind, right? Pick up a piece of paper and pen. We'd like to take 2 minutes hard out here. Now analyze the incident and draw inferences regarding possible digital forensics tasks that needs to be carried out. See, let me explain the question. Most of you, I believe, do have some background of digital forensics, and that's why you're here. We have had some basics understanding of digital forensics before coming up till this place where we are. Now, if you are tasked to do this action, okay, so what would you like? How would you like to go about it? First and foremost, you don't have any forensic related equipment with you, right? Time is just 10-12 odd hours that is being thrown at you. Condition of the laptop and the background, I have already discussed what it is like. So given this particular situation, how would you like to chalk your course of action, right? Please take 2 minutes, and after 2 minutes we will again resume, You write down your possible solution. I will discuss my solution out here. You please see for yourself that how correct you were or how better you were than our thought, so that if there are any shortcomings, you would like to sharpen your skills at that particular area, right? So just take 2 minutes and go ahead with it. We'll resume after 2 minutes. Okay, I hope most of you would have made some brief plan, though the time was very, very short, and we generally don't be in a rush to design our plan. I always believe, like what Abraham Lincoln has said, that if he's to cut a tree, he will take 75% of the time to think and plan for how to cut the tree, and only 25% time to really cutting the tree. So in any type of digital forensic activity that any of us do, we have to give detailed time on thinking that what is the possible uh, direction that we should be heading for. Right now, the first question that comes in the mind is, you know, what could be the possible use of the notebook? Why does uh, everyone why does that particular person has to carry a notebook? Not everyone carries a notebook. Then why this particular terrorist was carrying a notebook, right? Was it his personal one, or actually was there some organization related data in it? Okay, now if he is using a notebook, if whatever reasons it may be, now what is the assessed ability of the user? What can he possibly use it for? Do any of you believe that he was possibly using this notebook to design HTML pages and build websites or write codes or anything of that nature? Possibly not. They are using this notebook in the jungles. So no, they are not developers, or they are not part of any corporate or anything where they are developing anything. So less likely of there being a developer or anything. They were using it more from the user point of view, as an user, right? So what is the impact of the ability on our task? Very important question. The expert a person is, you give it to an hacker, even with that small little notebook, he can configure the system so sweetly and nicely that none of the sophisticated tools can all yield any result out of that notebook. It just cannot do it, right? So if he is just an ordinary user and not a developer or a hardcore genius who is into cyber security or securing desktops and laptops, so you are saved. If he actually is, then your tasks have to take a very different orientation and line of approach, right? So the impact of the ability is very, very essential to be assessed. Okay, let me tell you, in this particular case, um, I approached, even after the investigation was over, I approached people in Nehru Place and others that how many of them can actually modify the netbook to remove the AC input and the charging circuitry and uh, tap the connection from where they can directly feed the 20 volts connection through the charging circuit into the battery. For those of you who have done a bit of hardware engineering or tinkering around, you know, we call it as a float cum boost charge. So any laptop that you are using, even if it is on working on mains, actually the power comes through the battery. The battery is on continuous charge, even if the mains are there. Okay, so we call it a float cum boost charge. So that is the general funda that is used in it. So if a person has done it, which means that somebody in the higher up has configured the notebook and given it to them, tailor made to be used in jungles and terrains like that, right? But those people who have done that are sitting somewhere else, and the user is sitting in the jungles and in mountains out here. Now try and understand, if the person who has configured the notebook and sent it across for use, if that person is an expert, why didn't he then uh, why didn't he harden the laptop and give it? Anyone who can possibly answer this question? Right, see, if it is being used for such activities and if it falls in the hands of the security forces, you are bound to extract information out of it, right? So definitely would do like to do some hardening, right? So why was, I mean, will hardening be there or not there? Can anyone answer? Do we have any answers?
No, sir, there aren't any answers. But if you may allow, I have a particular theory in this regard.
Yeah,
My theory is that they wanted it to be obtained.
they wanted it to be.
They wanted the device to be confiscated by the profession, by the security people.
You are saying it's a sort of
If there isn't any
honeypot.
hardening, if
It's a
there isn't
honeypot
any
you're trying to
hardening,
say.
then they could be possibly.
Okay, very good thought. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Let me tell you. The prime reason for not hardening it is actually something different. Is that the moment you harden it, which means that there will be some extra processes that will be running on that laptop. Now we all know that the more extra processes that we have, the laptop is going to consume so much of more power. And once you're operating in jungles and mountains, power is a big issue. So it is a trade-off. What you would like to sacrifice and what you would like to retain. So definitely these people also contemplated on it, and they decided to sacrifice the security part. And the prime reason is, I can carry a highly secure notebook with me, but in the absence of power, that is as good or as bad as a stone if I can't use it. I can at most throw it at someone to injure that person. That's the best use that we can think of the notebook if it is does not have power to run, right? So power is a major consideration, and that is why there is less likelihood of securing it. Okay, okay. Coming to the next point, the impact of the bullet injury and the possible damage. If there is a bullet injury, what possible damage it could have caused? Fortunately, the bullet injury was not so grave. It passed through some of the peripheral portion of the PCB without damaging the computer, and the computer was able to run. One of the first issues that we had to face was the charging issue. Otherwise, you cannot use it. I mentioned that we replaced it with our own battery and used it. And then the challenges of credential recovery. If you are working on the live system, if you're mirroring it and working with specialized software and things like that, so since it is not a running, the hard disk is not running and in use in that particular machine, so you have actually got access to the complete data in that particular case. But if it is being used on machine, you are having a challenge of overcoming the credentials, right? Though people who have been working as a hacker know of very small sizes ISO images of disks that are there. You download that and run it, and you can overcome the credential part, and you can set your own administrative credential, right? So we also actually did that. The big challenge that we were about to face was the loss of sterility due to change of hands of the case. Now, once it went from one person to another, to one organization to another organization, people did not keep it in mind that we should be protecting the device and not be reckless with it so that we don't lose data. That what impact possibly it could have on our analysis was a question to us. It was a big challenge for us. Now, going to the next slide. See, the possible solution that we worked on was possible use is that this is definitely, let us accept it, whatever fancy gadget you might have, 99% of us, let it be a MacBook Pro with the latest features in that, we actually use it for browsing the net, right? The prime purpose of laptops or mobile devices are basically for browsing the net, right? Storage of data. And whatever role he was doing in the organization, definitely, since everybody is not having a laptop, so he is doing some organization related work for which he needs a laptop, and that is why he is being given that with that laptop. So he must be a decently educated person using that laptop for whatever role fulfillment in he has to do within his organization. But we know that communication is the first and foremost. So it can be browser based communication, it can be emails, right? Or some sharing of files or things like that over the network. But of course, in those days, it was WhatsApp and WhatsApp application for desktops or browsers were not present in those days. So we are lucky we didn't have to face that challenge. But we believe that communication is the prime reason. So if you ask what's so great about this conclusion, the great thing about this conclusion was that's a low hanging fruit. Where time is at premium, you have been given just 10-12 hours, you would like to go in for the low hanging fruit first to understand what it has in it, right? So we would, once we open up, that was the first place where we were supposed to go looking for information. Now, like I discussed, assessability, if he's a proficient user of computer, now and his role in the organization will depend, will dictate his assessability. Now, some of you must not be actually aware what organization roles possibly terrorist organizations will have. Well, they are very, very organized type of people. They are even possibly better organized than many corporates or MSMEs or things like that. So they have self-styled divisional commanders who head districts, a single district or a couple of districts. Then they have self-styled battalion commanders who head again small little areas within pockets within a district or geographical area, right? So then there are recruiters, there are sympathizers, there are fund collectors, there are fund distributors, there are people who are procuring for them, everything. See, the thing is that if you're running an organization, and that too for terrorist related activities, it calls for enormous amount of logistic support. And for coordination of all these things, you do need a hierarchy to work on and make you comfortable in your area of work, right? So definitely based on his role. See, if he's a recruiter, he's not working much in the fields. If he's a recruiter, he will be working in urban, semi-urban, rural type of areas and not absolute jungles. If he's a division commander, battalion commander, he will be working in very sophisticated places. If you happen to see any of the pictures or photos, or we are very lucky that Bollywood is very helpful in showing cinemas on these type of subjects. So the boss, the divisional commander, and the battalion commanders, they are in such beautiful places with televisions, electricity, drinks, everything. They're very well organized, right? So they will not be modifying a computer or a note or a notebook to use the way it was that we had got, right? So definitely accessibility does matter out here. Now, impact of his ability, like I mentioned, that if he's a very able person, he can harden the laptop and he can use encryption and he can ensure working in incognito modes and things like that, where it will actually become very difficult to extract any information from it. Charging facility we have discussed at length. I'm not going into it. Now, credential recovery, the challenge is if you're working on a system that is live and you're trying to extract the credentials, if in if you actually miss the credentials for a particular profile, be rest assured you will find it very difficult to extract the data, forensic data for that particular profile in a running system, right? So credential recovery is very essential, that you have to ensure that it does no collateral damage to any of the profiles or any application in the laptop, right? So loss of sterility, what we decided is that we'll try and undo earlier actions of recovery, whatever they have done, right? Let us try and undo whatever best we can, and of course there are ways and means of undoing the actions in a particular computer. Okay, so how you do it, maybe we will discuss in the end if time permits. Just to give you a hint at it, if you are trying to extract data from a laptop like this, one of the very crucial part it becomes your recent activities. Now, if people are fiddling with the computer, what happens is their activities come as part of the recent activities, and the actual recent activities takes a backseat. So to find out that since when these activities have taken place where people have tried to extract data from that, so we had to discount that particular portion and work backwards of that to extract the data. Any questions so far? I hope it's not boring and people are finding it useful, I believe.
No, sir, definitely not boring. It's very engaging, but there haven't been any questions so far.
Okay, fine, we'll go ahead. Okay, like I gave the terms of reference given to us was around 10 hours, no forensic tools available, no damage to laptop or data. They said that if you cannot extract data, fine, but please don't damage it. So what happens is basically this becomes a special case of hacking into a system where you actually have the physical system present in front of you, and this means that this is digital forensics by first principles, that you are going by raw, you are not using any sophisticated gadgets, tools, or anything like that, and you are now going by your knowledge of the systems, how they function, how a data is stored, how a data is transmitted, how are the services, processes that work in the computer, how browsers behave, how the user behavior impacts a system, and things like that. So it is more of the background knowledge that you are putting into use. Now, what is people might be wondering, what is the first principles? We must have read it in our calculus, that One, you're trying to find out the derivative by first principles. For people who have been fortunate not to read calculus. Okay, so I'll give another example. Let's take the case of JCB. We have seen JCBs extensively being used to dig uh, earth and remove the filling or use it for filling. So JCB is a very fantastic piece of engineering where you are using it and saving many man hours of labor and time so that you hasten up the complete process. But what happens if you don't have a JCB? Can't we dig? Yes, we can dig. We can use very native digging tools for digging earth, and yes, what a JCB could do in a day, possibly we'll be doing it in a week. But nonetheless, it doesn't stop us from moving ahead. So that's what we actually mean by first principles, right? So in this particular case, we were more or less employing digital forensics by first principles. So what we did was, first and foremost, we managed the power supply. Like I mentioned, we gave it an alternate one. We recovered the credentials. Next, the stepwise we went is, first we attempted the low hanging fruit, browser forensics. Like I mentioned, that the laptop was primarily being used for your communication purposes. We believe so, and so what we did was that the first thing that you go is try and get some data out of the browser, right? So that will actually give us lead how to work on the subsequent stages. Now, operating system forensics will again dwell greater depth into each one of this. That what are the processes running on the system, what is the network that he was using, and host of such things, registries, dig information out of it. Then, of course, network forensics. We were actually unsuccessful in using the Tata Indicom dongle because somebody had in an Josh trying to extract data had corrupted the complete thing, so it was of no use. We couldn't get any details. We carried out file forensic and email forensics. I'll be covering till file forensic. Email forensics is very, very sophisticated. I'm leaving it for this lecture, but till file forensics we'll be covering as in the next half an hour to 40 minutes. Okay. Now, another bit of exercise before we proceed to the next section. We'd like to take 1 minute out here, and you would like to pen down that what are the artifacts that one can crave out of the browser. What exactly, in a situation like this, what information are you actually looking at? Let's take a minute and dig out the information, and we'll resume after 1 minute. Okay, I hope most of you have been able to pen down most of the points out here. Now, the browser used was obviously Firefox, and the artifacts that which we were looking at is, navigation history, which are the sites that he's been using. I mean, this is very, very lucrative. So that gives that what is the thing that he tries to communicate, or how is he fulfilling his role in his organization. And by tapping into the navigation history, this is what we were trying to extract. The bookmarks that he had any, uh, people generally bookmarks those pages which they frequently use, right? So that will give us that it will give us a lead into what his role was and how he was actually fulfilling the role using the laptop. Autocomplete data. Now try and understand where power is a problem. Generally people try to conserve power by trying to save autocomplete data, the login forms and things like that on the system, and they will not shut down the system fully. They will put it to sleep, and once they open, immediately the laptop should start running, and they should be able to go to their website, do the whatever they want to do, and quickly come out of the website or remain logged in for the session to continue again once they open up their laptop. We are looking at those type of things. Add-ons, extensions, and plugins. Now add-on extensions and plugins gives your user behavior analytics. Like if he's using your Firefox, what all plugins he was using, so that will tell you actually what type of user he was and why he needed those plugins. The browser cache goes without saying that you can find out his recent uh, sites that he has visited, the data that was downloaded from those sites, and things like that. Maybe JavaScript files, image files, video files, whatever are the files that are there, we can get them from the cache. Logins into different sites that he had been through. Form data, whatever is the form data that they have stored there. Favorite icons of different sites that he has been visiting. Session data, ultra critical. So if you are using it for banking or whatever it is, your session will be very, very short lived. If it is a not utilized session, it will log you out forcibly. But for other things, generally the session will carry on for 1 day or 7 days, depends on the time that we have set in the cookies. And we wanted to read the cookies and see that what are those sites that which has a short duration timeout, and middle level type of timeout, and long duration timeout, right? So the long duration timeout may be the ones is the one which may not be having very sensitive type of data. So this thing we wanted to find out from that. Thumbnails, favorites, and sensitive data, all. So basically you are looking at different data from the browser. Now in those days actually not very much details was available in your uh, in Google or internet, where you could find out how to get the data from the browser. But nonetheless, a few odd links we did find, and based on that, what we did was this is what it is. Now, Firefox stores data as SQL-like database in the system, right? So everything, right? Be it cookies, be it your session history, be it downloads that you have carried out, be it the sites that you have visited, everything, the metadata relating to the sites that you have visited, the data of the sites as such, every piece of data in Firefox is stored as an SQL-like database. And where is this file? Where are these files, database files present? They're present in the app data folder of the system. So different systems have got different paths, but suffice to say that they're in the app data folder, and you can go into those folders and even download these database files. Actually, they are in hundreds in number, right? So the structure of the folder varies, the tree structure where it is stored, the path. So I didn't find it relevant to mention it out here, but it's not a very big rocket science. People who are wanting to find out can use Google and extract this data from the net. Now, those data that are profile dependent are stored in the user's app data folder, and those data which are central, common to all, like settings or preferences or plugins or things like that, they are kept centrally at a different place, right? Now these tables are human readable, except that the times are in epoch. All of you who have dealt it, this is a Unix epoch type from 1 January 1970, the number of seconds that have passed, based on that, the timings mentioned. So the timings are not absolute timings, because absolute timings vary as per time zones, right? So once we found out that this is there, what we did is we downloaded this complete data onto an external drive, and we distributed these files for analysis on different Linux desktop machines. Basically, we were running Kali Linux or Ubuntu, where we could carry out our own query of the system. So what we did was, since the files were large in number, timings had to be converted, right? And the data, some of the data was there as encoded type of thing. So base 64 encoded, we had to remove those encoding. What we did was we very quickly wrote a script, and we put each of these database files, and we did a batch run, and in just 1 odd hours time, we were able to convert these database files into a human readable formats, right? Otherwise, like simple thing, if you want to convert the time into an actual time based on time zone, there are online tools available on website. Go there, paste the value out there, and it will convert it to the date time, and then give you on which day, which time. So that data will that then becomes available. Now imagine if it's hundreds of such files, and each file having thousands of such rows. If you want to do it manually, it is just impossible to do it. So writing a simple script helped us, and once we got those tables, now these tables can then be used. You can either use Python, basically NumPy, if people have worked on it, and you can load this as data formats, and then you can generate your reports, right? So Python is a very beautiful programming language, where what it will do is it will pick up each of these database files and convert the data from that into report and give it. Now, if some of you are fortunate to use sophisticated forensic tools, there these things will happen on the fly, and you will not even come to know. But since we are dealing with forensics by first principles, this is how we had done in the absence of tools, right? So open source and paid tools are available on the net. They can be used, and in just in roughly an hour and a half or so after we started off, we were there with complete details of the websites that this person was uh, uh, visiting or using from his system. Okay, so just to give you uh, an insight of what it is, like this is the cookies table. So what is the cookie? You can see the ID, and the cookie has been set by whom. So just there is now a plugin available on Firefox itself. You download that plugin, and that plugin helps you in actually seeing your SQLite database tables that are there in human readable format. Okay, so you don't have to struggle much, and I think it's called as SQLite Manager or something like that, and you can use it. I'll request that you can try it after the lecture is over, and it's very interesting to see how your browser actually stores your information inside the computer. Okay, so these are the Mozilla cookies that were there into it, and like this tool is a very simple tool, and it can execute SQL query, where you can carry out query on these tables, and it will give you very specific data that you're looking at. The queries, SQL queries, are similar to your SQL language queries that we use in MySQL or SQLite or any other thing. So you can use those type of queries. But since we were not so fortunate, we used Python actually that time, and using Python we could get this complete uh, data with us. Okay, so this is how the data looks like. Now, if you see in this table, see the column headers, last axis, it is being shown as 1, 3, 2. So these are epoch times and all. So what we did was we converted, there are functions in your Python, PHP, and others, where it will convert those type of timestamps into your date and day-to-day time type of formats, and we quickly built into it, and then we sorted them as per time, that before the laptop was captured, what all did he do, and the days preceding, and the month preceding, and the week preceding, month preceding, 6 months, 1 year, and so on. So we could sort the data, and we could get details out of the data. Okay, so this is how the cookies table look like it. I'll give you a glimpse of some more tables. Okay, so this is the downloads. Okay, so in downloads, it is showing you that what is the file name that has been downloaded, the source from where it has been downloaded, the path where it has saved. Now this is very ultra critically important for us, because if you customize the browser a bit, you can save the file to a different location and other than the default location, right? So this actually gives you the working folder where the downloads is being carried out, and we go into that folder and try to have a look at those files, right? So I'll discuss subsequently, what we thought was so trivial, ki low hanging fruit, ki you go there and वहाँ जाते ही जो है आपको पके हुए पेड़े मिल जाएंगे. Nothing happened like that, and things were we understood the complexity of the system then, right? But nonetheless, this does give you that where was this file downloaded and saved. So you now start looking in those particular folders as part of your file forensics, right? So this, whatever output we got from this browser forensics, was actually feeding into your file forensics. Okay, so now this is the forms history, the different forms that have been filled, and what are the form fields and things like that. What is the value that has been filled in that. So if you see the field name column, it is giving the name of the field, HTML form field, and what value was filled into it was given from here, getting from here. Now we try to visit those sites, try to see those forms, and try to understand that what this person has done, and what are the values he put, and we could actually recreate the transaction, and without actually firing the transaction, but understand what all he had done. So if not the exact details of what since we were not looking at evidence as such, that was definitely not the intention, as I have brought out earlier. It was more of intelligence gathering. So here we were not interested in what he submitted and what he got, but at least it was important for us to understand that what he was doing. At least that intelligence gathering, it gave us a big lead into that. By the way, a bit of disclaimer, this is not that actual form which I had seen in those days, because that time we did not know, or I don't know whether this plugin existed at all. We did everything using Python. We wrote our own script. Okay. So this is the sign-ons that he had done. Now the sign-on is very, very nice. It gives different sign-on that for email is different. For general login, it is different. Some customer-based website that he's going into, that will be different. So this sign-on forms is a very, very, very important tool if you are looking at which are the places this person is actually used to logging into, right? So if it's banks or email accounts or social networking or anything like that. Okay, this is the very important part. Now, what are the payoffs we got from this browser? Because primarily, like I said, that most of us use our laptops for net browsing, or nowadays, of course, WhatsApp and social networking and things like that. But in those days, your browsing was a very big pastime for any person handling a laptop, right? So we extracted large number of websites visited by this person, and it also gives the frequency of visits to each of the website and the time of visits. Amazing. So if it says that he has gone into this email website 493 times, and it also gives when it did he go the last time, and things like that. So we again carried out deeper data analytics on it, like which day of the week it was, trying to understand the user behavior analytics, that is he used to going on a Monday or a Wednesday or a Saturday, which days was a rest day for him, and things like that. So those things we could get by further analytics of this metadata that is there of that we got from the browser. Now from the cookies we could get live sessions too, some sessions which had not ended and were still continuing, right? And it really helped us. We got into the website. Those were privileged websites, which means they are not open to all, and using this live session we got into it, and we could surf the complete website, and whatever we thought important we downloaded, and that was also another tons of data that we extracted out of it. Some of the sites could be visited on the internet, but large number of sites were not present on the internet. What does it mean? Simple. The guy was actually using some sort of VPN for those type of sites, right? So using saved login, it was possible to log into the sites. Using forms data that we had found out, forms data analysis, we could rebuild transactions, and we could make out what type of role this person was playing. And just to disclose, this guy was actually handling the financial part, right? And he was used to receiving funds, and he was used to disseminating funds, very crucial role. And all the sources of funds and all the sinks of the funds, where he was actually sinking the funds, those things we could extract out of those. I was discussing with Sashwati Ghosh sometime back on forensics for financial sector, and this is a very important lead tool that you can actually get, right? Now met with dead end when we could not get the websites, so we actually had to find out how to get to those websites. Analysis concluded that such site didn't exist. Either those sites were not existing, because we tried to go into history and find out by various online tools whether such site did exist in the past or no, something like that, and we came to know that no such site actually existed on the internet. So clear indication that now we are up against VPN, right? So till here was the browser-based forensic by first principles. Any of you have got any questions out here? I would like to take on. We are running slightly short of time though, but nonetheless we will take on, because the next sections are not so elaborate. So if you have any questions, you may shoot.
So there are a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So one is, do we have any defined or certified methods to preserve digital evidence so that it does not degrade or vanish with time? This is not
Are you
with
referring
respect
to the browser-based forensics that I just displayed?
So I do not believe this. So this question has been posted a while back.
Okay. Okay. Can we take this question at the end of the presentation? Please remind me. I will like to take it at the end of the presentation.
Okay. So there are a couple of questions with respect to browser-based forensics. So
Okay.
one is that if incognito mode be used in this case, what would have been the impact on digital forensics?
We cannot, there is no way you can find out anything if cognito mode is being used.
Okay.
In
And
private browsing and cognito mode browsing, there is nothing that is stored locally by the browsers.
and in case the browser had certain credentials, had certain passwords on itself, on the application itself, how do we go about tracking that?
Okay, they are possible, like in case of Windows and things like that. Uh, Generally, these passwords, they are present as hash in the registry keys, right? So In the registries also you have a uh, key ID and the key value pair of data that is stored out there. It is possible. In the next part I'm going to discuss about how to mine data out of your registry and try and find out these type of key pairs that are there. But what happens is that it uses one way functions in taking the actual password from you and converting it into a hash value and then showing it. Uh, these things actually do consume a bit of resources. There are online hash value crackers that are available where you can take subscription and upload the value of the hash that is stored in the registry if you can find out, and from there you can possibly get the cracked value. Okay, have I been
Thank
able
you,
to
sir.
answer that? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you. There's one more question.
Yeah.
What are the best practices to ensure that form data autofill information is not saved onto the browser, or how do we remove the same?
It's very simple. You just go to the browser preference, and in the privacy and security settings of the browser, any browser for that matter, you can just remove the tick on the save form data and the save login information and things like that, and it will not be saved. Right? People actually use to save data because today the number of privileged access websites have gone up enormously. Almost every second site today where you have got a membership or a subscription or whatever it is, what used to be in earlier dozens is actually now in thousands, and it is hard to remember all those username and passwords, right? So people have a bad habit of keeping same password for all sites, which again it is again easy to crack into those cases. Or for the ease of convenience, actually, where people feel that not much of security is involved in it, and still they would like to store their data, they use for that particular site. So site based rules are also possible to be set, that I can choose to save form related or login data relating to Google in the browser I would like to save, but for Yahoo I would not like to save. So site-based rules are also possible to be set in the preferences. I think that is not a forensic related thing. It is more of security best practices for browsers based thing. Have I been able to answer that? Any questions?
Th- Thank you, sir. That was the last of the questions with respect to browsers that I could collect.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next part. Okay, now very interesting question. Again, we will take possibly just 1 minute, and I would like people to answer it on their own. That what are the OS forensic related artifacts that are of interest that we would be looking at. It's we'll take around a minute. So quickly you can jot down, and after a minute I will again resume the presentation. Okay, slightly cutting short. Uh, I'm very sure most of you would have got your points right. Now, the operating system was Windows XP, and what are the artifacts of interest is recent activities, very much. That what was the laptop being used for? One thing which we had conclusively concluded was that it was being used for your browsing, Other than browsing, was it being used for typing any letters, any email or clients or any graphics? Somebody mentioned of steganography, whatever, anything of that nature. So what recent activities we would like to get information out of it. Very important is what are the processes running on the system. Are there any processes relating to cybersecurity or some malware or some extra processes to take care of certain extra things? What are the startup programs that are there in it? What are the registry entries the system has? This is registry after browser, I think, occupies the next most important and vital position. And again, it's a very low hanging fruit. So again, if you use Kali Linux, there are host of tools available on Kali Linux for carrying out forensic of registry entries. You can actually export the registry file from the computer into Kali Linux platform, and there you can open it, and then it is a very interactive query type of system that you can generate, and you mine data from the registry and find out the details of it, right? So the next thing is files, very important. Files means the system files, data files. Now again, this becomes part of your file forensics also. Profiles, how many people were actually using that laptop, and what were their profile, what were they using it for, right? So if it's a shared laptop, you're bound to have multiple profiles present in them. And what are the print spools? Okay, so we would like to extract, has their laptop been used on any printer, and if any printer it has been used, what is the type of printer it was used, and what are the documents that have been printed, and it's possible actually to extract this particular data. Recycle bin, even if you do a safe delete, it's possible to extract from the recycle bin whatever data is there in that. TomsDB gives you metadata of the file, right? Networks that the machine was connecting to, and what were the devices, were there in external hard disk being used, any Bluetooth devices being used, any other devices that the system was connecting to. Now these are the type of artifacts you would actually be interested in once you're trying to carry out your OS forensics, right? So in our particular case, we had crossed almost midnight by the time once we finished doing our browser based forensic. And now once we entered into OS based forensic, this was uh, a challenge of its different kind altogether. Now here we actually banked more on the registry related data, because whatever I discussed, the artifacts, bulk of them actually you get from the registry by querying it. Okay, so what we did was requires privilege escalation to administrator, because it's a running system, mind you. If it's not a running system, it is easy to actually get access to all the files. But if it's a running system, it is not easy to get access to all the files. Moreover, in a traditional case, you can actually extract that data, and after extracting the data, you can work on the folders of the external drive on which it has been mirrored, and remove all restrictions of file permission and use it, no problem. And of course, if you're using it with different types of your hardware and software tool combination, it as it is allows you access to almost everything, right? So from task manager, it is possible to view services and startup processes that are there. Hidden processes become difficult as it will not appear out there. Now Mark Rusovich, the tools which he gives, the system tools, if you get into those, there are you can even actually, at least till XP, you could very comfortably find out the hidden processes, pipes, and other things that are there that are being used. Okay, and this can be better viewed from the registry. Now connections to networks, again connections to networks is stored in your registry value. From there you can extract this data. So whatever is the H key, I mean local machine H key, whatever is the path that you need to browse through the registry, you can do it on Kali Linux and get it, right? Registry policy files, service related files can be copied and taken on Kali Linux for analysis. That's exactly what we did and this gives you actually wealth of information uh, that can be correlated with other forensics like browser-based forensics and things like that. So basically, what we did out here was those websites which we were not able to find out. We found out that this machine could actually it was actually connecting through VPN, right? And very surprisingly, the VPN access was still open for this machine and the private key that it was using. And we got into the VPN, and after we got into the VPN, the one moment. Okay, once we got into the VPN, then we browsed the site and we did a lot of things which I have enumerated slightly later. I'll show you that. Now these are the various tools, okay, which are present on Kali Linux, and each one of them are very very important. Like Kaku is very important for people who are using malware analysis. Then DFF is another very vital tool if you are using digital forensic framework, right? And you know, I will say that if you're using it for information gathering and not for legal point of view, this DFF is the mother of lots of tools. If you use it, it will churn out lots of information, and then you can correlate this information with other forms of forensics and get further data out of it. There are more tools. These are the some more tools that are present in it, right? Uh, iPhone backup analyzer, not relating to the present case, but it's decent. It's nice. If you have got the backup of an iPhone that you take it on a MacBook Pro or things like that, you can actually use it even to retrieve data. It's quite a good thing. And PD Gmail is another good thing. If you are using Gmail based email or any clients for that, you can get a lot of details from it. Now volatility is slightly, it needs specialization. It's beyond the scope of simple forensics. One has to get a very in-depth knowledge of it, and you can then carry out forensic analysis of the complete digital artifacts of the RAM samples. You can store the RAM sample in a file and evaluate it. Okay, so this was about the tools. Now payoffs, what happened was that we could get the details of networking that they was using. So it is in lots of details came out of that. So if the person was out of home or using the laptop in remote areas, he was using the Tata Indicom based USB modem to connect. And if this person was actually hopping from one place to another place to another place. He was visiting a lot of places, and this person used to stay in the house of different guests. He was a guest of different people, and once he was staying in those known people's house, so some of them had Wi-Fi, and they had given access to their Wi-Fi. And in those days, Google had actually launched a project to map Wi-Fi's globally. So any Wi-Fi that they were being used, Google tried to approximate the position by using geolocation means. And if it was more from a mobile device, it actually carried out very accurate recording of the latitude and longitude of those Wi-Fi. So once we analyzed these Wi-Fis from the registries that this person was using, we actually could get very close location of all these houses and things like that where all we have been. A very vital and crucial piece of information. Now, he had actually used RC4, we call it as ARC4, to encrypt the files, and this was of course using a custom encryption software they had used, but the algorithm was RC4. Now RC4, as in 10 years back, it could be very comfortably cracked with 10-20 machines if the Length was short, 6 to 8 or 10 characters in less than 24 hours inside a lab with 10 desktops and 2 odd servers. We could very comfortably crack it. But we were lucky that in one of the registry keys, we found the password for your this application for decoding the for decrypting the RC4 encrypted files. And this was very important because he was doing the accounting and the bookkeeping using Excel, and we could comfortably open those files. There were some files which the key did not work, for which we cracked it in our lab in the next 1 or 2 days. We had cracked it. So this was the payoffs for that. No malware running, no sophisticated software was running on the system. So it was actually a cakewalk for us. So this was so much for the OS based forensics. Now, any questions we have till here?
Sir, apologies to interrupt, but we only have 10 minutes, so we may not have
Okay,
enough time for all the questions for the session.
okay, okay. Okay, I'll quickly jump to the slides. So, what are the artifacts that you are looking for in network forensics is what is the communication media that is using, right? Is it Wi-Fi? Is it Bluetooth? Is it, I mean, people 10 years back, you must be very much aware, Nokia phones, number of them had Bluetooth PAN networking, so through Bluetooth you could network and connect to internet using a mobile device. The speed with which he was connecting was very crucial. So gives you an idea that which are the places he was visiting. IP addresses, again very important for the device, because if you actually send it to the service provider can give you a very pinpointed location that as on that day at that time where this IP address was located. This is very much possible to do. The routing that was taking place, data encapsulation methods that are being used, especially if you're using VPN. So what is the VPN security? What is the type of data encapsulation that they were using? Data privacy, right? The relating to the security of the data. Now, data extraction location. In the browser also we have seen it, and otherwise also if you are carrying out exchange of files over the network. So where exactly are you downloading your files and unzipping them or zipping them or storing them? Those details are the basic artifacts that we are looking into. So this is network forensics is very difficult to analyze, especially if you're in offline mode, and this needs some tools like if you have used Wireshark. So Wireshark can actually capture the traffic and create dumps, but again it fails. Wireshark fails if you are using VPNs, right? So the data at the application layer has to be extracted and seen, which is not very easy, especially to do by first principles. There are, of course, ready-made solutions and available where we can do it, but by first principles, it is difficult. Most of the information we obtained was by analyzing the registry, which is part of the OS forensics. History of connections were also held in the registry, right? Now, specialized networks, VPNs, and tunnels. Tunnels are more relevant to malware, are revealed from the registry analysis itself, right? So hidden tunnels and everything, you will get it from the registry. Everything is enlisted out there. Now, network forensics is very important if you're trying to carry out email forensic analysis, and if you're trying to establish the chain of the email flow, then this network forensics is very important there. We, in this particular case, carried out very little network forensics. Basically, we were trying to see and find out the VPN keys that were being used, so that if we get hold of the keys, we can use this connection from elsewhere. But we didn't land up with much success in this particular case. right? So what we did was we could recreate the VPN connection. Having recreated the VPN connection, the custom DNS servers that were being used for those internal websites, we traced it out, and all records of the DNS we obtained using zone transfer, which is a very important hacking technique and can be done just using dig command, right? If you use dig -zcf, you can actually get the complete zone based files. All websites that could not be found were now connected. So almost 100% of the websites we could now connect. Now after connecting, we could, using the data from the browser analysis, we could build up the forms and recreate a transaction, and we got even inner depth of whatever could be possible, right? So actually we had exhausted every source of information that could actually be gainfully extracted. Okay, so now file forensics, I'll be straight away jumping into it. Now what are the artifacts if we go for the file forensics? Again, file forensics, a large number of tools are available. Most of the paid tools very nicely cover file forensics. Now they work on file signatures. They try to distinguish between system files, data files, and other types. Okay, so for terrorists and other related, even for the people, for criminals as such, one of the very popular methods of masquerading data files as system files. So if it's a text file, you save it as .dll file inside the system32 folder, and it is going to pass off as a DLL file, and nobody is going to look into that particular corner. Okay, so what we did was if we tried to see whether those files were digitally signed by Microsoft or not. Again, very easy to implement a tool like that using Python. Right, even in Perl, you have got good tools like that. Just one line of command, and you can actually generate the tool for carrying out batch processing of checking the files, even if they're system files, even exe files, DLL files, etc., that whether they are actually really the system-based files or not. So we did that. Now, last access, origin, hidden streams, logs, and metadata, they can also be detected. There are tools available for it. File errors, we tried to detect some of the files that were there in the recycle bin. Try to recreate the files by correcting the errors which we tried to get. Not very successful because the time constraint, but later on over a period of time we could actually do it. Encryption, I mentioned already that we could decrypt the RC4 based encryption. Sharing of files we could find out, right? Okay, rust I'm skipping because of paucity of time. Let me see if I can cover the next slide. Okay, now a very important thing I would like to mention, that if you're working by first principles, don't have sophisticated tools, don't worry. Almost all file systems are readable on Linux. So if you can open the file system on Linux, you can read them on Linux. Custom scripts are very useful, like I mentioned. We created Python and shell scripts that was running on the list of files that were present on the hard disk, and from there we were able to create a text file giving the complete tree structure of the files. Right now, given this tree structure, it was possible for us to search and sort by paths and names in the text files. Right, and in Linux you can give command to even search the files inside the files using certain keywords, like egrep is the command. You can use those commands and you can find out. So again, a lot of data we started mining. Thousands of files we were able to find out, which were used for propaganda and things like that. There were files through which voice recordings were transferred from one place to another place, and these files were labeled as .e files, .text files, whereas they were actually multimedia files. So we could, seeing the header of the file, we carried out analysis, and in just 1 to 2 hours, we completely worked out on the file sorting part, right? And we isolated them, and then we could present the files as such to the people who are interested in that. Okay. Okay, so we identified large number of files that were downloaded, almost 10 GB of super critical data we had got, and we decrypted ultra critical Excel and Word files, revealed large amount of data. This paved the way for using intelligence for furtherance of operations. Honestly speaking, this almost set off as this beginning for, since we had got so much of data which earlier we were not having. It uh, led to operations, and this saw the decline of militancy in those areas, terrorism in those areas, courtesy this one night that we got with the laptop and the analysis that we did. Right. So I actually conclude out here. So these are the conclusions. I will just take 2 minutes to finish the conclusions if I'm permitted, because you people are very prompt at starting. I'm sure you must be prompt at ending also. So, by first principles means that don't need to have very state of art hardware and software. You just need to have that presence of mind on how to dig and move ahead. More important to know how to find your way through. Right? Mathematical and psychological aspects need to be clearly understood. If you understand the mathematical and psychological aspects, it actually helps you in creating your custom scripts. If you have an understanding of the file system and how possibly that the person who has perpetuated the crime or the criminal, how is he using that? How is he using technology to hide files as a DLL file or things like that? If you have idea of those psychological things, you will be able to dig out that information. Aim of forensics should be very, very clear. I should not beat around the bush for unnecessary things, looking for unnecessary evidence, and only creating frustration and reaching nowhere. If you are very clear on your path, you will reach the destination. All options should be exhausted by end of the project to get maximum information. Right? So, ladies are very, very good at this particular thing of, I mean, as those married people will know that as a husband, if you come late to home, the wife will ask, what happened, you're late today? And if you go early, you will be surprised to get a question that, what happened, you are early today? So in either case, you have to answer that question. The same thing applies here also, that all options, I mean, you have to calculate that in your mind, what are the options that are possible. So, and then you have to exhaust all possible options. Digital forensics is part of forensic science and not IT. Very important to understand. So the rules of forensics apply more than of IT. Out of exuberance, don't start applying IT just because it is a digital forensics. Sound knowledge of IT and cybersecurity must for digital forensics. Without that, you go nowhere. That's all I've got for everybody. Thank you so much for the patient hearing. I hope I have not bombarded you with too much of technical things, and you would have enjoyed listening to this presentation as much as I enjoyed presenting it to you. Thank you, everybody. A million thanks to the organizers, and everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Any
much, sir.
questions, if you permit, I will take on.
Thank you so much, sir. We definitely had a very engaging session, and most of our attendees are still logged in. So maybe we can take around 2 questions. I'll quickly go through them.
Yeah.
Firstly, it was we had that previous question. Do we have any defined or certified methods to preserve digital evidence so that it does not degrade or vanish with over time?
Yeah, we do have these type of rulings that are there, and let me tell you one thing. Please don't look at digital cyber forensics as part of IT or cybersecurity. Please take that thing out of mind. It's part of forensic science. The rules of forensic science are applicable in the case of digital forensics. Whatever are the rules that are prevalent in courts globally, right? You have got to meet them. Okay, so whatever are the standards being used in individual countries or in you have to respect those type of things, and those will be your terms of reference for carrying out your work. You cannot deviate from them. You cannot say that my software does only this much and I can only give this much. No, that type doesn't work. So this thing has to be taken care of. this is more from a legal point of view rather than uh, um, from the digital forensics point of view. If you Google search, maybe you will get better answers than what I'm able to give, because I am not a very competent authority to answer this question. Maybe a lawyer who practices this digital forensics can give a better answer. I'm sorry if I am not been able to answer correctly.
Thank you, sir. There's one more question that I would like to take up. That when you had gained access into the VPN, was the target organization aware of your presence? How do we deal with the same?
See, that thing I cannot say for surety whether they were aware of my presence or they were not aware of my presence, because at the end of the day, the VPN is being managed by them, right? So a simple log at their end will reveal that on such and such date, this client did log in. See, understand one thing. What I had played on. This guy is dead. I think he was dead for good about 10, 12 days when the laptop reached me. But maybe his handlers or the organization to which he belonged were not aware of his death. So they had not revoked the credentials for the VPN that this guy was using. So I took advantage of that situation and got into the system and extracted that data from there. And uh, they did not block it, and I did it for good about the entire almost for 4 to 5 hours, and all websites that were there inside the private websites, the data that was to be downloaded, the zone transferring from the DNS. Even we did a very limited type of PT, basically trying to map what is the infrastructure present inside, try to get those type of details. We did do it, and I'm very sure that after they had come to know that he had died, or if they tried to see the date on which they had which if they had come to know the date which he had died, they would have, if they are worth their salt, they would have done the analysis at their end and would have found out, that somewhere from Delhi or some else other location, the VPN was accessed. You cannot deny that particular point. I hope I have been able to answer this question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. We have multiple requests for you to share your presentation for today's session. If you kindly oblige, then we'll share it with the rest of the attendees as well.
Sure, I will do that. I will share it in the evening today. No issues. I'll do that.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll move forward to the vote
I'll
of
just
thanks.
have one small request regarding the presentation. Is I will remove the title slide. I will not attach my name anywhere, because though I am retired, I'm not sure whether I should be distributing this copy of this or not. I'll be removing this. Rest, you are free to use it, or I'll just remove my name from it.
Thank you, sir. So, thank you for your informative and captivating session on digital forensics and the live case study you have shared with us. Your insights, expertise, and practical examples have provided us with a deeper understanding of the intricacies of digital forensics, including the importance of evidence collection, analysis, preservation, and all the artifacts that we may need to check during a course of such investigation. Your engaging delivery style and passion for the subject has left a lasting impact on the attendees as well as ourselves, and we are grateful for your valuable contribution and look forward to future opportunities to learn from your experiences, preferably during physical meetings as well. So thank you so much, sir. I thank you, Shubhendu sir, as well, Sandeep sir, and Shashwati ma'am for arranging this session. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.